The city was breathing. That's the only way Isabella Cruz could describe it. New York at night didn't just make noise, it pulsed. The hum of traffic, the distant echo of music, the soft whisper of rain tapping against metal and stone. It all wrapped around her like a heartbeat. She pulled her coat tighter around herself as the rain grew heavier. It wasn't supposed to rain tonight. She wasn't supposed to be walking alone in Midtown either. But the Uber driver had missed her stop. Her phone was at 4%, and she had already taken a wrong turn. Twice, she checked the small blue dot blinking on her cracked screen. It was useless. The map kept spinning. She sighed, shoving the phone into her pocket. Of course, she muttered to herself. Why not get lost at 10:45 p.m. in the rain? The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that made her skin prickle. No bars, no convenience stores. Just narrow alleys, wet pavement, and buildings with no names. That's when she saw it. Across the street, tucked between two dark, empty storefronts, was a restaurant. Black glass, gold trim, soft warm light glowing through the windows like a secret. A faint tune of jazz music floated out every time the door opened and closed. It wasn't a place she'd normally go to. It was the kind of place she'd cross the street to avoid. But tonight, it looked like shelter. She ran across the street, water splashing around her ankles, and grabbed the gold handle. The door was heavy, but it gave way with a deep click. The moment she stepped inside, the world changed. The rain, the noise, the cold, gone. Replaced with a low hum of jazz, the warm scent of whiskey and expensive perfume, and eyes. Lots of eyes, every head in the room turned toward her. Men in tailored black suits. Women with diamonds around their necks like they were born wearing them. Cigars, crystal glasses. A world she did not belong to. She froze just inside the door, water dripping from her coat. A man near the bar muttered something in Italian. Someone else laughed, a low, dangerous sound. Then her gaze shifted, and she saw him. Dante Morello didn't sit. He commanded the space. Even from the far end of the restaurant, in the corner booth draped in shadows and warm gold light, he stood out like a storm in a still sky, black suit. Crisp white shirt, hands folded loosely on the table. His hair was slicked back, revealing sharp cheekbones and a jawline carved like marble. But it was his eyes that made her forget to breathe. Dark, focused, cold, the kind of eyes that didn't just look at you. They measured you. He was surrounded by men who looked like they'd kill for him without blinking. But he didn't need to say anything. The moment she walked in, the entire restaurant had gone silent. Dante tilted his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle he hadn't expected but was curious to solve. She wanted to turn around. She should have. But something in that look made her feet stay glued to the floor. R, the waiter near the entrance, stepped toward her. "You're lost," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. She forced a small, nervous smile. I just need directions. My phone died. I'll leave." The waiter opened his mouth to respond, but he didn't get the chance. "Bring her to me." The voice came from the back, smooth, deep, and quiet, but it cut through the music and the whispers like a blade. Dante Morello hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. The waiter stiffened, then nodded once. "This way." Isabella's stomach nodded. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her body didn't move. She let the waiter guide her through the tables, past silent stares, past expensive watches and unreadable faces, straight toward him. She stopped 2 steps away from his booth. He leaned back, one arm draped over the leather seat, his glass of red wine catching the soft light. Up close, he was even more dangerous looking. His suit fit perfectly, his movements slow and deliberate, like a man who owned time. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at her, not the way men looked at women in bars. Not like prey, More like someone reading the first page of a book and deciding if it was worth burning or keeping. Finally, he asked, "Name." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Isabella? Isabella," he repeated slowly, letting the sound roll off his tongue like a secret. "You're not supposed to be here, Isabella." She forced herself to lift her chin. "I'll just go." "I didn't mean to sit." One word. No threat. No yell. Just a quiet command. But she sat. The waiter disappeared. The background chatter started again, but softer now, like the whole room was pretending not to listen. "You look like someone who doesn't belong here," Dante said. She bit her lip. "That's because I don't, and yet here you are." She exhaled slowly. "I got lost. Wrong street. I just wanted to get out of the rain." "You picked the worst place for that?" She frowned. "Why?" He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. His cologne hit her senses. Dark, expensive, dangerous. "Because this isn't a place people accidentally walk into." She stiffened. "Then I'll leave." He tilted his head, almost amused. "No, you'll stay. For now." Something about the way he spoke made her heart beat louder in her chest. He didn't flirt. He didn't smile. He just existed. And somehow that was louder than any yelling could have been. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. She shook her head. He smirked faintly. "Good. That might save your life." Her breath caught. Was that a joke? He didn't laugh, so probably not. She glanced around. Everyone was pretending not to look at her, but she could feel it, the weight of their stares, the tension, the sense that she had just walked into something bigger than she understood. He noticed the way her eyes darted toward the door. "You're scared," Dante said softly. "I'm not." "You are. You should be." His voice wasn't cruel. It was honest. That made it worse. She swallowed. "What kind of place is this?" "A place where people don't walk in unless they're invited." She shivered, but instead of dismissing her, he leaned back, picked up his wine glass, and studied her like a man deciding something. "But you're different. You don't belong here. Which makes me wonder," he set the glass down with a soft clink, "why fate dropped you at my door." She didn't know what to say. She wasn't special. She wasn't important. But the way he was looking at her, like she had accidentally stepped onto a battlefield, made her chest tighten. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The waiter brought a small towel. She hadn't even noticed how soaked she was until now. She took it with shaky hands, trying to steady her breathing. "Where are you from, Isabella?" he asked. "Queens," she said softly. He smirked slightly. "You're far from home." "I told you. I got lost." "No one gets lost here," Dante said. His words landed heavy. She didn't understand why, but they carried a warning. A promise. A trap. A man approached Dante's booth from behind. Tall, muscular, dressed in black. He leaned down, whispering something into Dante's ear in Italian. Dante's jaw tightened. Whatever the man said, it wasn't good. "She stays," Dante said flatly. The man hesitated. "Boss, she stays." The man backed away. That word, boss, echoed in her mind like a gunshot. Boss, not manager, not owner. Boss. It hit her like a slap. She wasn't just in a restaurant. She was standing in the middle of a world she had no business being in. "Do you believe in fate, Isabella?" Dante asked suddenly. She blinked. "What? Fate?" he repeated, voice low. "When the universe puts people in places they were never supposed to be." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat was too dry. "I do," he continued, leaning closer. "And I think fate just brought you to me." The jazz music in the background swelled slightly. The lights flickered as lightning cracked outside. It wasn't a romantic line. It was a dangerous one. For a moment, she saw something in his eyes, something that didn't belong to a monster. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even softness. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "Go home," he finally said, his voice quiet but commanding. "But remember this, not everyone gets to walk out of this place." She stood slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her feet carried her backward toward the door. As she pushed it open, cold air and rain rushed in. She turned around one last time. He was still watching her. Like a storm waiting to decide whether to destroy or protect. And in that single moment, Isabella Cruz knew her life had just changed forever. The rain hadn't let the city breathe since that night. It was as if New York itself was holding its breath, keeping a secret in the shadows. Isabella Cruz hadn't told a soul what happened at that strange restaurant 2 nights ago. She hadn't told her sister. She hadn't told her best friend. She hadn't even whispered it to herself out loud. Because if she did, it might become real. And Dante Morello was not someone she wanted to make real. She had spent those 2 days trying to bury the memory of his eyes. Those sharp, piercing eyes that didn't just look at her, they saw her. Not like a stranger on a street. Not like a flirt in a bar. He had studied her like she was something unexpected dropped into a dangerous world. She could still feel the weight of that night, the rain soaking through her coat, the low hum of jazz, the way the entire room had turned to stone the moment she walked in. She was supposed to move on. She was supposed to forget the man whose name she didn't even ask for. But some things weren't meant to be forgotten. Some glances had a way of leaving fingerprints on the heart. The city moved fast, but that week moved slower than she'd ever felt. Every time she walked down a street, she found herself glancing at black cars parked at curbs, men in sharp suits walking by, gold-trimmed signs on dark windows. It wasn't that she was looking for that restaurant. She told herself she wasn't, but her feet didn't believe her lies. She finished her last class at the law campus that Thursday evening. Her laptop was heavier than usual. Her coffee was colder. Her brain was tired of pretending she hadn't stood in front of the most dangerous man she'd ever met. She walked toward the subway like every night, but halfway down the sidewalk, her pace slowed. The city was humming again, the same way it had that night. It wasn't the sound of traffic or chatter. It was something beneath all that. An undercurrent. A pulse. She didn't remember making the decision to turn left instead of right. But there she was, her heels clicking softly against the wet pavement as she walked down a narrow street with golden lights flickering above. When she saw the restaurant's black glass again, her heart stuttered against her ribs. It looked exactly the same. Not a single chair out of place. The same golden light glowing from inside like a quiet invitation. Only this time, she knew what waited behind that door. She should have walked away. She should have forced herself to keep moving, but she pushed the door open anyway. The shift was instant. The warm hum of jazz, the smell of whiskey and cigar smoke, the quiet weight of eyes turning toward her. She felt it all like a wave hitting her chest. The place wasn't just elegant, it was dangerous in its elegance. Every man in that room wasn't simply eating dinner. They were keeping secrets, making deals, deciding fates. And she had walked right into the middle of it again. The waiter at the entrance recognized her. She saw it in the small flicker of surprise in his eyes before he masked it behind a professional nod. He didn't ask her what she wanted. He didn't tell her to leave. He simply turned and gestured toward the back corner, and there he was. Dante Morello. Dante sat in the same booth, in the same black suit, looking like someone carved from shadows and power. He wasn't just sitting. He owned the space around him. His fingers tapped lazily against the wine glass in front of him. The world could have ended outside and he wouldn't have flinched. And when his eyes found hers, it wasn't surprise she saw. It was something worse. Expectation. He had expected her to come back. She walked toward him slowly, every step heavy, like her body knew the danger her mind was trying to ignore. Her palms were clammy, but she lifted her chin anyway. He watched her without blinking. A wolf watching someone who'd stepped too close to the woods. "You came back," he said softly. His voice smooth like warm velvet, but edged like glass. "I shouldn't have," she whispered. Dante tilted his head slightly. "But you did." The chair across from him was empty, just like it'd been that night. She didn't want to sit down. She wanted to turn and run, to go back to her safe little world of law textbooks and city buses. But her feet betrayed her again. She sat. The air between them was heavy, not loud, not awkward, just alive. It was the kind of silence that felt like something dangerous was breathing with them. "You don't belong here," Dante said finally, his tone low, almost thoughtful. "I know," she answered honestly. "Then why are you here?" She swallowed hard. She could have lied. She could have said she was lost again. But lying to this man felt like playing with fire. "I don't know," she said. His eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger. "More like someone piecing together a puzzle. People who say they don't know," he said slowly, "usually mean they do. They're just scared of the truth." A waiter brought 2 glasses of red wine. Dante didn't ask if she drank. He just poured it. She stared at the crimson liquid swirling in the glass-like blood, dressed in elegance. She didn't lift it, but she didn't push it away either. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. She thought he would fill the silence, maybe say something clever or threatening. But he didn't. He just let the quiet do the talking. "Do you know who I am?" he finally asked. "No," she said. "Good," he said. His lips curved not into a smile, but something colder. "That might save your life." She stiffened. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. She wanted to leave. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to stand up, to walk out the way she came. But there was something pulling at her. It wasn't logic. It wasn't sense. It was him. The way he spoke. The way the room bent to his presence without him moving a finger. Her eyes wandered around the restaurant. She saw them more clearly now. Men in black suits. Gold watches. Hidden guns under jackets. Everything polished, dangerous, quiet. This wasn't a restaurant. It was a headquarters dressed like fine dining. And then she noticed someone near the bar. A man, different from the others. His stare wasn't respectful or curious. It was sharp, hungry, unsettling. Dante followed her gaze with practiced ease. His eyes hardened instantly. That calm, unbothered mask cracked for a single heartbeat. "Look at me," Dante said softly without raising his voice. She hesitated. "Isabella." Her name on his tongue made her freeze. Slowly, she turned her head back toward him. "Good," he murmured, his voice dropping lower. "Ignore him. He won't be here much longer." She didn't know what that meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to. "You're not safe here," he said suddenly. She stiffened. "Then why did you tell them to bring me to you?" His fingers tapped against the wine glass again. "Because I decide who walks out of here." Her chest tightened. She should have felt terrified. But underneath the fear was something she couldn't name. "Who are you, Dante?" she asked quietly. "Someone you shouldn't get close to?" That's not an answer. It's the only one that keeps you breathing. The way he said it, it wasn't arrogance. It was truth. Heavy, real, dangerous truth. Dante stood slowly, and she noticed how even his movements had weight. His presence was a storm she couldn't look away from. He reached into his jacket, pulled out something small, and placed it on the table between them, a black card. No logo. No number except this single line of digits printed in silver. If you ever get in trouble, Dante said softly, don't call the police. Call this. She stared at the card like it was a burning match. Why? Because trouble doesn't care about the police, he replied calmly. The weight of his words sank in. This wasn't a number you gave someone casually. This was a line between worlds. Crossing it meant stepping into his world, a world she knew nothing about but could feel pressing in from every direction. She stood. Her hands trembled slightly, but her chin didn't drop. She picked up the black card and slipped it into her coat pocket like a secret. For a moment, their eyes held each other's again. That same pull. That same dangerous thread tying something between them. Go home, Dante said, but it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a man telling himself something he didn't believe. When she pushed open the door, the cold air bit at her cheeks. The rain had stopped, but the smell of it lingered in the night like a ghost. She stood there for a second on the sidewalk, the golden light of the restaurant behind her, the unknown city in front of her. She should have thrown the card away. She should have run, but she didn't. Back inside, Dante watched her leave from the shadows of his booth. Luca approached him quietly, hands in his pockets. The way men who've seen too much of the world walk. You shouldn't let her get close, Luca said. I'm not letting her, Dante replied. Eyes still on the door she'd walked through. Then what are you doing? Watching fate make a mess. That night, Isabella lay in her bed, the card burning against her palm. The storm outside had finally calmed, but her mind hadn't. She tried to convince herself it was just a moment, just a place she shouldn't have been, just a man she shouldn't have met. But deep down, beneath the fear and confusion, was a dangerous truth. She didn't just walk into the wrong place. She walked into something she wouldn't be able to walk away from, fade to black. The next few days felt like walking with a loaded gun pressed to her spine, not visible, not audible, but constant. Isabella Cruz went to class, made notes, grabbed coffee, smiled at classmates. But something had shifted inside her. Since the night Dante Morello had slipped that small black card across the table, the city didn't look the same. Every black car she passed made her heart skip a beat. Every suited man outside a restaurant felt like a shadow watching her. And worst of all, every time the sky darkened, she felt a pull like a string tied between her ribs in that golden-lit restaurant on 7th Street. She told herself she wouldn't go back. She told herself she was smarter than that. But fate has a strange way of ignoring logic. Thursday night came again, draped in mist and rain. And Isabella found herself standing in front of that black glass door like she'd been sleepwalking all along. The door opened before she even touched it. The same waiter with the same blank expression nodded once and stepped aside. He didn't ask why she was here. He didn't need to. Somehow, everyone in this place already knew when she'd come. The warm jazz wrapped around her like silk. The scent of wine and perfume sat heavy in the air. Her eyes swept the room instinctively, and there he was, Dante Morello, in the same corner booth, his back straight. A glass of red wine cradled between two fingers. Only this time, there was something different in the air. This wasn't the quiet, controlled night she had walked into before. This time, the room carried a different energy. Men whispered more sharply. A couple of them had their hands near their jackets, their shoulders stiff. There was an invisible current running through the restaurant, like a storm hovering above them, but not yet striking. And when Dante's eyes lifted to meet hers, there was something sharper in them. Like the blade behind the velvet, she walked toward him slowly, her heels tapping softly on the polished wood. You shouldn't keep coming back here, Dante said before she even sat down. His voice wasn't a warning this time. It was a statement heavy, low, filled with something she didn't understand. Then why don't you stop me? she asked quietly, surprising even herself. His jaw flexed slightly, the only sign that her words had hit their mark. Because I want to see how far you'll fall before you realize what this place really is. She exhaled shakily. And what is it? His eyes didn't leave hers. A world you don't survive in. She should have walked away right there. But she sat down instead. Luca approached the booth mid-conversation. He didn't look at her, but his tone was clipped, serious. Boss, he's moving. Dante's eyes narrowed. When? Now. Word is he sent someone uptown. It might be a message. A muscle in Dante's jaw twitched. Victor never sends messages. He sends problems. Luca's gaze flickered briefly toward Isabella, just enough for her to feel it. And that tiny, almost invisible glance made her stomach tighten. When Luca walked away, she asked, "Who's Victor?" Dante leaned back slowly. "Someone who likes to remind me that peace is just a myth." "Rival?" He smirked faintly. "You learn fast." The night was heavier now. She noticed things she hadn't before. How the men around the bar subtly repositioned themselves. How one of them checked his watch twice. How the air itself seemed to hum like a wire pulled too tight. "You need to go home," Dante said suddenly. She blinked. "Why?" "Because something is about to happen and you don't want to be here when it does." She straightened her back, trying not to let fear crawl into her voice. "You think I'm too fragile?" He leaned forward, the gold light cutting against the angles of his face. "No, I think this world doesn't care how strong you are." And before she could respond, everything shifted. The front door slammed open, not loud, but firm, deliberate. Two men walked in wearing black coats soaked from the rain. They didn't glance around like customers. They walked straight down the middle, slow, measured. Every man in Dante's restaurant tensed. Isabella's heart began to hammer against her ribs. She didn't have to know their names to understand. These weren't random people. These were wolves in another wolf's den. Dante stood. The movement was subtle, but it silenced the entire room. The two men stopped halfway between the entrance and Dante's booth. One of them taller, with a scar cutting down his jaw, smirked. "The boss sends his regards." Dante's voice was calm. "Then tell Victor to grow a spine and deliver them himself." The man chuckled. "He likes to keep his hands clean." "Pity," Dante replied coldly. "I don't." The next few seconds blurred into motion. One of the men reached inside his coat. Isabella's breath caught. Dante's men were faster. Two guns were raised before she even processed what was happening. "Don't," Dante said quietly. Just that one word, and the entire room froze like puppets. Caught mid-act, the man with the scar pulled out a black envelope instead of a gun and tossed it onto Dante's table. The sound of the wet envelope hitting the polished wood was louder than the jazz music. Inside, the envelope was a single plain card, the Queen of Hearts. Slashed down the middle, Dante's expression didn't change, but something in the air cracked like thin glass under pressure. He picked up the card slowly, turned it between his fingers, and then slid it back across the table toward the man. "Tell Victor I'm done playing." The men left as calmly as they came, but the tension didn't leave with them. It lingered like smoke. Isabella hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath until Dante sat down again. Her hands were clenched tightly on her lap. She stared at him, not just scared, but pulled deeper into something she didn't understand. "What was that?" She whispered, a warning. "From Victor?" "From a man who likes games more than he likes blood. But he always ends with blood." She shook her head. "I shouldn't be here." "I told you," he said quietly. "You don't belong in this world." She stood slowly. "Then why aren't you letting me walk away?" For the first time, something flickered in Dante Morello's eyes. Not cold, not sharp. Something human, because, he said softly, "you walked through that door. And once you walk in, you don't get to walk out clean. He reached into his pocket again. She tensed, but this time, he didn't hand her a weaponized number. He handed her a small, folded napkin. On it was a single address. "This is a safe place," he said. "If Victor ever comes looking, don't run home." Her hands trembled slightly as she took it. "Why are you doing this?" Dante exhaled slowly. "Because trouble has already seen your face, Isabella." The restaurant slowly returned to its rhythm, but nothing was the same. She sat there with him, her heart racing, but her mind unable to look away. "Who were you before this?" she asked suddenly. He tilted his head. "Before what?" "Before you became whoever this is." For a long moment, he didn't answer. His fingers tapped against the table like he was keeping time with a memory he didn't want to revisit. Someone who thought love and loyalty meant the same thing, he finally said. "I was wrong." There it was again. That small crack in the armor. That fleeting, dangerous softness that made everything worse. When she finally walked out of the restaurant that night, the rain was coming down harder than before. The streetlights blurred into golden streaks against the wet pavement. She wrapped her coat tighter around her and walked quickly down the street. But she could still feel it, the weight of his gaze from behind the glass. Inside, Luca turned to Dante. "She saw too much tonight." Dante didn't look away from the window. "She's already in it?" "Then we should know," Dante cut him off. "I'll handle it." Outside, Isabella held the napkin with the address. The paper was wet, the ink smudging, but she didn't throw it away. Because some part of her already knew. Whatever storm Dante Morello was walking into, she was already standing in it too. The rain didn't stop anymore. It was like the city itself was trying to drown its secrets before they surfaced. For Isabella, sleep had become a distant concept. Every night since the envelope and that /Queen of Hearts, she had felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was the sharp awareness of being seen, not just by Dante Morello, but by something much larger and far more dangerous. She had tried staying away. But how do you stay away from something that doesn't live outside you anymore? The golden lit restaurant wasn't just a place on 7th Street. It was inside her chest now, every beat of her heart echoing like that quiet jazz. Thursday night again. And she found herself walking that same street. Again, she didn't have an excuse anymore. Not for herself. When she entered this time, something was different. The air didn't just hum with power. It vibrated with it. The men were quieter, their faces harder. The music wasn't as soft. Even the waiter who usually greeted her didn't meet her eyes. Dante was at his usual corner. But this time, his jacket was off and his shirt sleeves were rolled up, showing faint lines of ink wrapping around his forearms. Tattoos, stories, warnings. His hair was slightly tousled like he hadn't slept. He wasn't holding a wine glass tonight. Just a black coffee in one hand, a knife lying on the table like an extension of him. When his eyes lifted to meet hers, she didn't see the teasing shadow from before. She saw a storm caged in a man's body. "You came back," Dante said softly, but it didn't sound like a welcome anymore. It sounded like a fact he'd already predicted. Isabella stepped closer. "I told myself I wouldn't." He smirked faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. Lies have a habit of finding their way here. She sat down without asking before they could even begin to speak. Luca walked up to Dante, leaned close, and whispered something low in his ear. Dante didn't flinch, but his grip on the coffee cup tightened, enough to make the porcelain creak. "Victor moved earlier than expected," Luca muttered. Still low enough for Isabella not to catch every word. Dante's jaw clenched. "Where?" "Harbor warehouses. One of ours didn't make it back." The silence after those words was so heavy, it felt like the air itself held its breath. Dante finally looked up at Luca and gave a single nod. Luca disappeared like smoke, Isabella's pulse quickened. She didn't know what was happening, not fully, but she could feel the weight of it in every shadow. Someone died? She asked quietly. Dante looked at her for a long time. In this world, Isabella, people don't die. They get taken. The room was different now. She saw Dante not as the cold, distant man who'd sat with a wine glass and controlled the room like a god. Tonight, she saw the general beneath the king. Sharp, watchful, dangerous. Why do you keep coming back? He asked suddenly. Her breath hitched. I don't know. He leaned forward, eyes piercing through her like a blade. You do. Because I can't stop thinking about this place, she whispered. About you. His eyes softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. That's not something you should admit to a man like me. Then why aren't you telling me to stay away? His silence was louder than any confession. The door to the kitchen burst open, not violently, but with a kind of unplanned force. One of Dante's guards stumbled out, clutching his side. Blood smeared down his shirt. Luca was right behind him, shouting orders in Italian. Men moved fast, pulling guns, sealing doors. Isabella's heart slammed against her ribs as reality caught up to her. What's happening? She whispered. Infiltration, Dante said coldly, standing. He's inside. Who? Victor. The next moments blurred. Men in suits took positions. The music stopped. Lights dimmed slightly. The world outside didn't know anything, but inside the Morello restaurant, a war had stepped in through the back door. Dante grabbed her wrist, not gently, but not to hurt her either. Just enough to pull her against the wall behind him. You're staying behind me, he said. She could barely breathe. Don't argue, don't argue. A figure appeared from the hallway near the kitchen, tall, leather coat, scarred cheek, cold grin. Isabella recognized him, not because she'd seen him before, but because this was the man behind the playing card. Victor sends his greetings, the man said in a calm, cruel tone. You should have stayed outside, Dante replied. His voice like a low growl. The man shrugged. He thought I'd enjoy seeing your kingdom up close. Dante stepped forward slowly, like a predator closing in on prey. The man didn't flinch. Where is he? Dante asked. Closer than you think. 2 gunshots exploded outside the door. Screams, boots, chaos. Luca barked orders. Dante's men moved like a machine. The man in the leather coat smirked and pulled a gun, but before he could aim it, Dante's bullet had already pierced his arm. The man screamed, dropping the weapon. Dante moved fast. No hesitation. No mercy. The restaurant erupted into chaos. More of Victor's men burst in through the service entrance. The golden light that once made the place beautiful now illuminated violence. Broken glass, shouts, the metallic echo of gunfire mixing with the scent of expensive cologne. Isabella crouched against the wall, hands over her ears, every nerve screaming to run. But she didn't, because every time she looked up, she saw him, Dante Morello, moving through the chaos like he'd been born for it. He wasn't a restaurant owner. He wasn't even just a mafia boss. He was a storm given shape. When a gunman broke past the line and aimed toward the hallway she was hiding in, she froze. The world went quiet for half a second. Then Dante appeared between her and the bullet. He didn't hesitate. He fired once. The man fell. He turned back to her, his hand pressing against the wall next to her head, his breathing rough, his knuckles bleeding. You see why I told you not to come back? He said hoarsely. Her voice trembled. And yet I did. Something flickered in his eyes. Something that scared her and anchored her at the same time. 20 minutes later, the restaurant was unrecognizable. The men who'd come in bleeding were being carried out. Broken glass littered the floor like shattered stars. Victor's men were either dead or unconscious. And in the center of it all, Dante stood with blood on his knuckles and rainwater dripping from his hair. He didn't speak for a long time. Neither did she. She just watched him, her heartbeat still pounding in her ears. He finally turned toward her. "Do you get it now?" She swallowed. "Get what?" "This world doesn't forgive mistakes. And you walking into that door was a mistake." She should have agreed. She should have begged to leave. But instead, she whispered, "Then why do you keep pulling me back?" Dante didn't answer. He took her upstairs that night, to the rooftop. The rain had slowed to a mist, wrapping the city in silver fog. From up here, the chaos below looked like another universe. He stood by the railing, hands gripping the edge, shoulders tight. "This is what I am, Isabella," he said quietly. "Not the man who pours you wine at midnight. This." She stepped closer. "I know." "No, you don't," he said, turning to her. "You think it's some dark fairy tale. It's not. It's blood and betrayal and people who don't get out alive." She met his gaze. "Then why did you save me?" His jaw flexed. "Because I didn't want your blood to be on my floor." But his eyes said something else. "Because I care, even when I shouldn't." They stood there in silence for a long time. The rain painted the night in soft silver. The city lights blurred in the mist. She didn't touch him. He didn't move closer. But their silence was louder than any words. For a moment, she caught it again, the man underneath the iron, the one he never showed anyone. And in that moment, Isabella Cruz realized something terrifying. She wasn't just walking through the wrong door anymore. She was already inside it. She didn't belong in his world. But part of her didn't want to leave. The night the war began didn't look different from any other night. The rain still fell softly over the city, turning the streets into rivers of gold and black. But Isabella Cruz felt it in her chest, that strange, quiet heaviness that comes before everything breaks. She sat by the window of her small apartment, clutching the folded napkin Dante had given her weeks ago. She had memorized the address printed on it 100 times over. She told herself she would never need it. But deep down, some part of her had always known this night was coming. On the other side of the city, in a black glass restaurant that wasn't just a restaurant, men were loading guns, whispering in Italian and sealing doors. A storm wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. Her phone buzzed against the windowsill. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Almost. When she did, the only voice she heard was Dante's, low, tense, controlled. "Isabella, listen to me. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere near the city center. Victor's making his move." Her blood ran cold. "Dante, what's happening?" "He's coming for me," Dante said. "And anyone standing too close?" Her breath caught. "Why are you calling me?" "Because whether you like it or not," Dante said softly, "you're close." The line went dead. And just like that, the night wasn't quiet anymore. By the time she arrived at the restaurant, the place looked nothing like the warm, golden world she had stepped into the first night. Every chair was moved. Every window locked. Every man carried something under his coat. Luca saw her first. "You shouldn't be here," he snapped. She swallowed. "He called me." Luca cursed under his breath. "Then stay close." Dante was standing near the main entrance, a gun in his hand, hair damp from the rain, shirt sleeves rolled up. The quiet power he usually wore like a cloak was gone. What stood there now wasn't a man of shadows. It was a man built for war. When he saw her, something flickered in his eyes. Not softness. Not panic. Something in between. "I told you not to come," he said. "I'm not leaving you," she replied. For the first time, Dante didn't argue. The first headlights cut through the mist like a blade. Then another, and another. Black SUVs rolled down the empty street, stopping like a procession of silent executioners. Victor didn't just come with men. He came with an army. Dante exhaled slowly. He always loved theatrics. The front car door opened, and there he was, Victor. Tall, shaved head, leather coat, that same scar cutting down his cheek. His grin was the same as the night he sent the Queen of Hearts. Only now it was bigger. He didn't need to yell. He just stepped forward, rain glistening on his coat, and the world itself seemed to hold still. The moment Victor crossed the threshold of the restaurant's front steps, a single shot cracked the night. One of his men went down. A warning shot from Dante's side. The tension in the air was alive now, breathing, waiting to explode. Victor, you always liked hiding behind your fortress, Morello. Dante, I don't hide. I build. Victor, then let's see how well it burns. The first wave of gunfire erupted like thunder. Isabella hit the floor instinctively as bullets shattered the front windows. Dante shouted something in Italian, and his men moved like a well-oiled machine, returning fire from behind tables and pillars. She had never seen anything like it. The precision, the violence, the clarity in Dante's eyes, the air filled with gunfire, smoke, and the sharp scent of gunpowder. Men fell on both sides. Shadows flashed through broken glass. The once elegant restaurant was now a battlefield. Isabella crouched behind a wall, her heart pounding so loud she thought it might give her away. But even in the chaos, her eyes never left Dante. He moved like the storm itself, fast, sharp, efficient. 2 men down, a third disarmed. He didn't hesitate once. Victor wanted a war. He got one. One of Victor's men tried to push toward her side. She froze. He raised his weapon. But Dante was faster. A single shot. One breath. One heartbeat. The man was down. I told you to stay behind me, Dante growled, his hand gripping her arm just long enough to steady her. Her voice shook. I'm not leaving. For a second, in the middle of chaos, their eyes locked. There was no time for softness. But there was something. The gunfire thinned. Bodies fell silent. Victor finally stepped through the shattered front door like a man walking into a stage he'd built himself. How many years has it been? Victor asked, his voice slicing through the smoke. Too many, Dante replied, walking forward, gun lowered but ready. We could have ruled together. You killed that when you touched what was mine. Victor smirked. I've always had good taste. The sound of Dante's gun cocking was louder than thunder. The 2 men circled each other slowly, like wolves testing the air. Everyone else stepped back. This wasn't about soldiers anymore. It was personal. The first lunge was brutal. Victor swung a knife toward Dante's ribs, but Dante blocked, shoving him back with the butt of the gun. The knife clattered to the floor. Victor grabbed him by the collar, and they crashed against a broken table. Rain blew through the shattered windows, mixing with blood on the floor. Fists, elbows, grunts. Every hit between them carried years of history. Old betrayals, burnt loyalty, lost love. Victor slammed Dante against the wall. You got soft, he hissed. Dante spat blood and smirked. I got dangerous. He twisted Victor's arm, slammed him onto the floor, and pressed the gun to his chest. One of Victor's men came from behind, gun raised. Isabella didn't think. She moved. She shouted his name, and the shot went off. Dante turned just in time. The bullet grazed her shoulder instead of hitting him. The world narrowed to the sound of her sharp gasp. Dante's blood turned to ice. He shot the man without hesitation and rushed to her side, pressing his hand against her wound. His hands were warm. His voice was raw. What the hell were you thinking? He growled. She winced. I didn't want to lose you. Something cracked inside him. Right there in the middle of gunfire, Victor tried to rise again, gun in hand, but Dante moved like fire. One clean step. One clean shot. The bullet hit Victor in the chest. The man stumbled back, eyes wide, blood blooming across his coat like a crimson flower. For a moment, the rain, the smoke, the sound, all of it went still. Dante lowered the gun slowly. That's for everything. Victor collapsed onto the wet floor. Just like that, the storm that had been brewing for years ended with a single shot. The gunfire died. The rain returned to being just rain. Luca and Dante's men moved around, checking the injured, dragging Victor's men out of the building. Dante knelt beside Isabella, his hand still holding hers tightly. Blood stained her sleeve, but she was conscious. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered, voice breaking in a way she'd never heard before. She gave him a weak smile. And yet here I am. Something in his face softened. That uncheckable, dangerous mask finally cracked open. Just a little. Hours later, the rooftop was quiet. No gunfire. No danger. Just the slow hum of the city and the pink light of dawn trying to break through the clouds. Dante leaned against the railing, bruised and bleeding but alive. Isabella walked up beside him, her shoulder wrapped in bandages, her steps slow but steady. He didn't look at her at first. "Everything I touch breaks," he said softly. "I didn't want that for you." She stepped closer. "Then maybe you should stop breaking things." He huffed out a soft, tired laugh. It was the first real laugh she'd ever heard from him. He turned to her. For once, there was no mask, no walls. Just Dante, the man who once ruled the city with iron, the man who'd kept everyone at arm's length. "You walked into my world by accident," he said. "But now, I don't want to let you walk out." She reached for his hand. Not carefully this time, not with hesitation. "Then don't." Their fingers laced together, rain and blood and dawn wrapped around them like a promise neither of them planned for. "I don't care about how dangerous it is," she whispered. "I'm already here." As the sun finally climbed over the skyline, the world below kept moving, sirens, traffic, noise. But up there, it was quiet. Dante kissed her forehead softly, not like a man claiming something, but like someone finally letting a part of himself live again. For the first time in years, the storm inside him wasn't just rage. It was something else. Something terrifying. Something real. Isabella Cruz had walked into the wrong place, but she had met the right danger.